When it comes to systemizing with AI, you don't need a 300-page manual or a 12-phase methodology. What you really need is a streamlined, practical playbook. A handful of steps that you can remember to repeat and lead with confidence. That's what I want to give you here, the 5 steps to start. These steps distill what works across industries and organizations of all sizes. They're simple without being simplistic. Follow them and you'll avoid the traps that sink most AI efforts. But ignore them and you'll find yourself in the same cycle of pilots that never scale. So step 1, define the business problem. The first step is to define the problem. This might sound obvious, and yet it's where most AI initiatives go wrong. All too often, teams start with a tool. Let's try a chatbot, or let's test a forecasting model. That's tinkering. Instead, start by asking, what must improve in our business? Is it cost? Is it speed? Is it quality? Is it growth? Frame the problem in business terms, never technical terms. For example, our financial close process takes 15 days. It needs to come down to 5. Or our customer churn is at 12%. It must drop to 8. When you define the problem this way, you align AI with what executives, boards, and customers actually care about. The second step is to map your critical process. Once you know the problem, you have to see where it lives. Where in the workflow is the bottleneck? Is it in approvals, data entry, communication, handoffs? Mapping the process gives you a system-wide view so you don't just optimize one task in isolation. Without this, AI becomes a patch that might fix one pain point while leaving the bigger blockage untouched. With process mapping, you identify exactly where AI can amplify performance in a way that moves the needle on outcomes. Now, I spoke recently with a leader who thought their slow financial close was due to manual reconciliations. But after mapping the process, they discovered the real bottleneck was rework caused by inconsistent handoffs between regional offices. And that insight changed everything. Instead of buying a flashy tool to automate reconciliations, they redesigned the workflow and then layered AI into the specific choke point. The result was a smoother close end to end. Mapping processes before adding AI prevents wasted effort and it maximizes ROI. Now, by the time you've defined the business problem and mapped the process, you've already done something that most AI initiatives skip entirely. You've anchored the work in business reality. However, there's a third step that makes or breaks whether your effort translates into results. You set 1 or 2 measurable outcomes. This is where leadership discipline really shows. Without clear outcomes, AI pilots drift. They generate activity without accountability. They produce dashboards without business impact, and when the board asks, what's the ROI? Well, you're kind of left shrugging. That's exactly what happened in the marketing department of a company I know. They launched an AI tool to generate campaign copy. It produced plenty of text, but there were no KPIs, no baseline for quality, no targets for conversion or measures of customer engagement. And after a few months, the pilot was abandoned. The tool seemed to perform just fine, but no one could say whether the pilot had succeeded or not. Without outcomes, there's no story to tell. You also need to resist the temptation to overload this step. You don't need 10 metrics. In fact, you shouldn't have them. The more outcomes you set, the harder it becomes to focus and scale. Instead, pick 1 or 2 measures that directly tie to the business problem you defined. If your problem was slow financial close, your outcome might be reduced close time from 15 days to 5, like we said earlier. Or again, if your problem was customer churn, your outcome might be reduced churn from 12% to 8% in 6 months. The tighter and simpler the outcome, the easier it is for teams to design toward it, and the easier it is for you to report on it. There's another layer here, credibility. When you set outcomes, you create a contract with your board, with your stakeholders, with your teams. You're basically saying, this is how we'll know if AI is delivering value. That discipline forces sharper decisions. It keeps the teams from wandering into scope creep, and it gives you the confidence to shut down initiatives that don't move the needle, because the evidence is right there in the numbers. I'll tell you what happens when leaders do this well. Instead of AI pilots becoming side projects, they become mini business cases. Suddenly you have before and after data. You can show cost reductions, cycle time improvements, revenue lifts. That's when boards stop rolling their eyes at AI and start leaning in. And that's when you shift from experimentation to credibility. Now, once you've defined the business problem, mapped the process, and set clear outcomes, you're ready for step 4, which is to pilot it with a tight scope. This is where many executives get impatient. The temptation is to go big fast, to announce a sweeping AI rollout that covers multiple departments at one time. But here's the reality. Large-scale rollouts without proof are where budgets get burned and credibility is lost. The smarter path is to start small. So small, in fact, that you can prove or disprove value in 60 to 90 days. That's long enough to see meaningful results, yet short enough to maintain urgency and avoid drift. A well-designed pilot is a focused experiment with clear boundaries. The goal is to show that AI can deliver measurable business outcomes in a controlled environment. That means you limit the scope to a single process, a single team, or even a single geography. You don't try to fix everything at once. You focus on one choke point where success is undeniable and scalable. This is the discipline executives need to model. Pilots must have boundaries. They must have baselines, and they must have outcomes defined in advance. Without those, pilots become playgrounds. They're fun for teams, but useless to the business. With them, pilots become proof points, evidence that you can carry into the boardroom to justify scaling. Now here's a nuance that's worth paying attention to. A good pilot doesn't just prove that AI works, it proves that your system works. Remember, AI plugged into a broken system just accelerates the brokenness. A tightly scoped pilot lets you test the workflow, the governance, the training, and the adoption. It forces you to make sure clarity, control, and capability are in place before scaling. So step 4 is this: pilot with purpose. Keep it tight, keep it measurable, and keep it disciplined. Do that, and within 60 to 90 days, you'll know whether you have something that can scale or whether you've avoided a much larger mistake. And once you've proven value with a pilot, the natural instinct is to celebrate and then move on to the next shiny project. But the real opportunity, the one that changes the trajectory of your business, comes at step 5, scale with guardrails. Scaling is where most organizations stumble. They take a successful pilot and roll it out broadly, but they forget that what works in one corner of the business doesn't automatically work everywhere. Different teams, different geographies, different functions, they may have different workflows or data quality or risk profiles. Without guardrails, scaling turns your pilot into a liability. Guardrails are the conditions under which AI can safely and reliably scale. They include governance structures, who approves expansions, what metrics must be met before scaling, and what oversight stays in place. They include compliance checks and risk checks, ensuring legal, ethical, and reputational boundaries are respected. And they include cultural guardrails, making sure teams are trained, supported, and ready to adopt the new way of working. In short, scaling with guardrails means you only move forward when you can guarantee both performance and trust. So let's bring the playbook together. Step 1, define the business problem. Step 2, map the critical process. Step 3, set 1 to 2 measurable outcomes. Step 4, pilot with a tight scope. And step 5, scale with guardrails. It's simple, it's clear, it's powerful. Now what I want you to notice is that this playbook is not technical. It doesn't require you to understand algorithms or data science or machine learning. It requires you to lead. It requires you to define problems, set priorities, enforce discipline, and insist on accountability. That's why this is an executive playbook. Your teams will handle the details. Yet if you don't lead with these 5 steps, no amount of technical brilliance will produce enterprise-level results. The organizations that succeed in the AI era will be those that systemize first and scale carefully. The ones that fail will be those that treat AI as a toy, skip the steps, and rush to scale without guardrails. The difference is not luck, it's leadership. And with this 5-step playbook, you now have the framework to lead with confidence.
Hi, I'm Jason Jancy. This was just a slice of the full Systemize First executive briefing I recently recorded. If you'd like the complete framework, how to systemize AI so it actually delivers results, you can watch it free at techleaderadvance.com/systemizefirst.